Welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today we have a special episode and a special guest here. We have Mike Notes and Tones joining us. Thank you, Mike, for jumping on to walk through this video with us.
No problem.
So, all right. So this episode, we're going to focus on the Village Vanguard. This is something that a lot of people, we all have different recordings from there. We thought it'd be a cool idea to dive in and see, what recordings were there and just talk about the history of the place itself. When we jumped into this, we realized that there are over 100 recordings, so it was already overwhelming. We've been kind of working through our list, what we have, what we want to go over, and we'll break it all down. So we'll start with kind of the history of it, then we'll get into some of the details and some of the recordings. All right, so we are now going to jump into some of the background of the Village Vanguard. So geographically, it's located in Greenwich Village, New York. And it was opened in 1935 by Max Gordon. And he, I think, immigrated from Belarus. And he was, I think, he lived in Portland, if I'm not mistaken, and then moved to New York. Is that correct, Felipe?
Yes, that's it, Mike.
Okay, all right. And then when he passed away, Lorraine Gordon took over. And then now the proprietor is their daughter. So it's been in one family since it's opened up. And yeah, so with that, I think we can talk about the room itself. So Mike, do you want to kind of jump in and describe kind of the setup of the actual space itself?
Sure. The first thing, just when you come in the Vanguard, when you enter the Vanguard, you are going downstairs into a basement. So you go down the steps, you enter into the Vanguard. The stage, as soon as you enter, you can see the stage. As soon as you enter, it's at the front of the club, and then all the seating is you have the stage, and then you have all the seating going back from the stage, and then you also have seating on the side.
And that's elevated, right? The side, don't you?
Yeah, it's slightly elevated. It's on the side where the musicians walk up to get to the bandstand. Usually, they take that route. And even though I've seen a couple in the past walk through the crowd, the walls are covered with it's sort of like a green, like felt. It looks like sort of like the material you would cover a pool table with. And the club has numerous photographs of basically all the musicians that have played there. You have your Coltrane, you have all of the Jones brothers, Thad, Elvin, and Hank, and Tommy Flanagan, Bill Evans. They're all the greats that have played there, and some of more recent musicians, I believe Roy Hargrove. Maybe up there, and so like I said, the seating is all in front of the stage, and it goes all the way back. And the club, and the best way I could describe it, it's sort of from the band, it's sort of like megaphone shaped, where it gets wider from the bandstand. Going out.
Yeah.
And they have a bar area, and they're seating at the bar and seating in back. They do now. They have a PA system and amplification. And I think being in a basement, and the fact that how the club is situated and the design where the bandstand is placed. That helps in the projection of the sound. And it's just by happenstance. It's not like, they brought people in there and said, okay, we're going to design this club this way.
So the question is, this place is almost 100 years old. So
right.
I've never been there. So just like going to any museum or an important place or a historical place, does it feel like, oh my gosh, this is 100 years old? I feel like I'm there. Or it feels like it has changed through the years? It feels like just going to any other joint.
Oh, definitely. It doesn't feel like going to any other club. You get the sense of the history you know, as soon as you walk in the place. Like I said, you have all these photographs up there, and you know it's known who played there. So before you even step in the club, you know it's the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
You know Coltrane has played here.
Yeah.
You know Bill Evans has played here. So you already have a sense of the history, and just going in there, very dark. And when the music starts, it gets darker because they even turn off, you know, whatever lights are are on, or even dimmed further. Mm-hmm. So you get I guess you get a sense of being in an older club, an older style club that, you know, you go to a club today, you know, it's going to be somewhat better lit. But you also have that history on the wall, all those photographs that you're surrounded by them. And, you know, I've gone to other clubs and, you know, they don't have that history on the wall. They may have a few photographs here and there, but not like at the Vanguard. You know, when you sit down and just take a look around, you know who's played there.
Yeah. And I will say, Mike has taken me there once, and being a jazz fan, like seeing those pictures, like I just started walking around the club just to look at them. I mean, it was so cool to see, you know, everybody's picture up there. So it was cool.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I haven't been there either, but to me, it represents something that doesn't really exist anymore for the most part. I mean, you know, New York City has other clubs and stuff, but most places don't.
Yeah.
Right? They used to, where there's jazz clubs everywhere. Like we, here in Fort Worth and Dallas, we have a couple of little tiny ones that are, you know, have been around for the last 10 years or whatever. It represents a bygone era to me. I mean, I've never been there, but that's, you know, kind of what the place represents, just thinking about it to me.
And, you know, it is a, you know, a long surviving club. And that area of the Village is on 7th Avenue South. When I first started going to the Vanguard, right down the street was another club that I used to go to a lot, called Sweet Basil. Sweet Basil's been gone for years. It's been gone for years. Some of the great places to see jazz in New York have all gone by the wayside, but the Vanguard remains standing.
Yeah.
There's another club that I used to go to a lot. The building is still there. It's on University Place. It's called Bradley's. I got some great recordings from Bradley's, some great memories from Bradley's. But Bradley's is, you know, that shut down in the 90s.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Is there any other New York club that compares to the longevity of the Vanguard?
No. Nope.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any place that's been open since the 60s besides the Vanguard even? I mean, the 50s, 60s, 70s even? You know what I mean? Like, are there any other legacy clubs there?
It officially opened in 35, but I don't think they were playing jazz. I think it was a while before they got jazz.
Off the top of my head, I cannot think of one. You know, all those clubs that they're gone that, you know, that symbolize that era when the Vanguard started. The Village Gate is no longer there. It's a CVS now.
Right.
These clubs are gone. I mean, even recently, a club opened called Cafe Bohemia.
Like the old one?
Yeah, and you know, I saw a notice on their social media that they're closing.
That's unfortunate.
So, you know,
So I mean, it's unique then. I mean, there's probably other places in the world that are still open, that have been open for a long time. But when you think of classic, you know, jazz clubs that we have recordings from, it's pretty much unique.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, like, small paradise doesn't exist anymore, right?
You have all these recordings. Yeah. It's definitely unique.
Yeah.
One of the other places you think of, Birdland's obviously gone.
Yeah, Birdland's a weird situation.
Okay.
You know, the original Birdland, the current Birdland is not in the place that the original Birdland is. And then, but it's in the same area, you know, the Times Square area.
Because the original Birdland, wasn't that up in Harlem?
No. See, the Birdland that existed in the I guess you say what 90s was further uptown in the 100s.
Okay.
But the Birdland where, you know, Miles Davis got assaulted by the cop, that was the Midtown area. But then that it closed. Then they reopened, I guess I want to say the 80s, but that was further Upper West Side. And then they relocated again back into the Times Square area where it is now.
Okay.
But yeah, no long, you know, the Vanguard's probably got the longest sustained run of any jazz club in New York.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I love when people say, like, when I watch documentaries of musicians talking about the Vanguard, they talk about going down those steps and who went down those steps before them, because, you know, everybody, that was the only, you know, that was the entrance that everybody used, and it's, you know, it housed all of the greats. They've all played there, so it is kind of an incredible legacy.
Oh, yeah.
I did want to push us on and talk about, so the Vanguard obviously has dates. They book people to play sets for a week. And I just wanted to ask if, Mike, if you could kind of talk us through kind of the calendar, the schedule, and some of the key artists that come in regularly in kind of today's Vanguard.
Sure. I mean, the thing about the Vanguard, you got to realize that there are, you know, 52 weeks in a year. They play, most of the musicians that play there, they play a week starting on Tuesday through Sunday. Mondays are reserved for what is now called the Vanguard Orchestra, which before that, it started off as the Mel Lewis Thad Jones Orchestra. And then when Thad Jones left, it became the Mel Lewis Orchestra. And a lot of great musicians have played in that what is now the Vanguard Orchestra. Joe Lovano is the one that comes off the top of my head, but there are just so many. Rich Perry, a saxophone player, just a number of great musicians. But the Vanguard, like it's 50. You know, you have 52 weeks in a year. There are people that have, you know, basically play there every year. They have a dedicated week or 2 weeks. The first person I think of, because I try to go to his show every year. I've only missed 1 year, and I don't know, in the last maybe 8 or so, and that's Jason Moran. So Jason Moran plays the Vanguard Thanksgiving week every year. And
so this is the, I think, 2017 performance. And so this is fantastic. This is, I think they put 2 or 3 of these records out at the Vanguard. This one I got directly from his website. It's Yes Records. You can order this. I think there's limited pressing, so but I think they're still available.
Yeah, they're still available.
And yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. So some notes here. So they play on side, I think it's either B or D. It's a double LP. They play Thelonious, and the bass player really stretches out in the beginning. It's fantastic. They're all like outstanding on this. It's kind of exceptionally good. So, you know, Jackie Byard was also one of Jason Moran's mentors. So he has a song called For Jackie, and that's fantastic. He also addresses the crowd, and he talks about how his set is becoming a New York tradition, and how, you know, kids that are coming out to watch his set now talk about it when they were 13. They saw him for the first time. Their parents brought him. So that was kind of cool. And then he plays gangsterism at the Vanguard. So on his records, he plays a gangsterism song all the time. and it's different every time. But this is it's basically like a, I don't know, like 12-minute song, and it starts like traditional whatever, and then it just gets, they just play all different styles. They just go everywhere. So it's that's a really killer track too. So this is an awesome record.
And that is his second recording live at the Vanguard. His first one is called Bandwagon. And that is an excellent recording also. That's only available on CD. I have a CD of that, but that's an excellent recording. And I'm sure in the future he'll do another live at the Vanguard recording. But also after Jason Moran, Christian McBride plays there. And he's played there, I don't know how many years, but it's been quite, it's been a few years. But Christian McBride plays 2 weeks at the Vanguard in two different bands. And there is, he released a live recording not too long ago. And Inside, that's what his band, Inside Straight. And there.
All right, so it's a quintet?
Yeah, Christian McBride on bass, Steve Wilson, alto and soprano, Warren Wolf on vibes, Peter Martin on piano, Carl Allen on drums. If you watch YouTube, and it's a show on musicians, it's called Open Studio, and one of the guy, Peter Martin, the pianist, is one of the hosts on there, and he played with, not only with Christian McBride, but a who's who of musicians. So, and so Christian McBride does 2 weeks with two different bands. And
so if that's the quintet, because you said the other week is a trio, is that right?
No, so, not with Christian McBride.
Okay.
I mean, it may vary. Maybe in the past it's been a trio, but he has another band that he's been playing with recently, and then they played last time after Inside Straight, and I think that's a piano-less quartet. That it's his new Jean band. So
right, yeah.
JAWN.
That's a Philly reference.
Yeah, yep. And then also Kenny Barron, plays there annually, and I believe he has 2 weeks also, and he'll do a trio week, and then he'll do a week with a larger group. I saw them with the larger group. It's Kenny Barron, Emmanuel Wilkins on alto.
Oh wow!
And Jonathan Blake on drums, and I'm blanking at the rest. But that was an excellent show. But, so you have those dates that are sort of set aside for those musicians, and then there are other musicians that play regularly there, like I'm going to show this. And this is a beautifully recorded CD right here. Fred Hersch, pianist, and he plays there quite regularly. And the drummer on this recording is also the drummer on the Jason Moran recording, Nasheet Waits.
Oh, right.
That's pretty cool.
There's
wow.
Outside the Club. This is a beautiful sounding recording. So Fred Hersch plays there consistently. Joe Lovano plays there practically a week every year. When Paul Motion was alive, he played there. I would say at least twice a year, or maybe he played two weeks straight. But Paul Motion played there consistently.
When we were looking at number of recordings by artists, he was one of the most recorded at the Vanguard.
Yeah, and this is one of the Paul Motion trio with Bill Frisell and and Joe Lovano. And this is on a German label. And then there's another one on that same label. And I had listened to this again the other night, which is fabulous. And it's, the Paul Motion Trio, Right Out of My Heart. And this is a beautiful recording. You can, I don't know if you can see my promotional purposes only CD stamp on there.
Well, one thing about Paul Motion is, I mean, the thing is, like in '61, he recorded Waltz for Debbie and Sunday at the Village Vanguard, right? And what you're saying is that he continued to play the Vanguard all the time. I mean, this is a landmark recording. Obviously, Scott LaFaro died tragically, but the thing is like in '61, he was playing there with Bill Evans, and then he continues to just have a relationship with that club. And I think it's kind of neat to think about it, that this is the origins of when he started there.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to see the origins of Paul Motion with the Bill Evans trio. So I'll just quickly show these. These are two very famous Village Vanguard sessions, and they're both coming out as OJCs. So they should sound great. And then there was also the 45 box set that I think is still available of the Riverside recordings. But yeah, so Paul Motion.
I mean, those got to be the most famous recordings from the Vanguard, right?
Probably, yeah.
There's one or two that might rival it.
Yeah, and then you have I guess you'd have the first live recording at the Vanguard, what we know to be the first live recording at the Vanguard, which is the Sonny Rollins.
That's the Sonny Rollins, 1581, I think it's a 57, 58 recording.
Oh, wow.
So
that's the first one we know of. That's cool.
Yeah.
So Sonny Rollins, Wilbur Ware, Elvin Jones, Donald Bailey, bass, and Pete LaRocca drums. So there's 2 different sessions, each band on a different side, right? Donald Bailey and Pete LaRocca on one side, Wilbur Ware and Elvin Jones on the other side. This is actually the repress, because it's a New York label.
Nice.
It's a 60s label, yeah. But Sven Gelder is just not Plastilite.
What year is that again?
So that's recorded in 1957 at the Vanguard. And I think I've heard stories of Alfred Lyon and Rudy like setting up the recording equipment like in the Vanguard and basically recording to tape in the audience. I think that's the case. I don't know the exact history there, but if anybody does know that, please leave a comment or something.
Whatever they did was really good because this record sounds amazing. Sounds better than many other that came later.
And another early recording that I have is this Jerry Mulligan.
Nice.
Large band at the Vanguard, which is really good. And I can't recall off the top of my head the exact year, but this is an excellent one. And you can find copies of these, next.
What is he playing? What is he playing there, Mike?
Huh?
What is he playing there?
It's a large band. Okay, he's playing baritone. Actually, he's even playing a little piano. The rhythm section is Mel Lewis, Bill Crow. Then you have trumpets, Nick Travis, Clark Terry. I'm not going to read everybody, but then, trombone, you have Bob Brookmeyer. And those are the guys that most people would know. But it's a big band.
Yeah.
And that's from 1960.
Some people Earl Hines also recorded at the Vanguard. I mean, and I know this one I'm sure you can find on vinyl. It's really good because it was done on Limelight originally and reissued on Verve on CD. So, and the good thing about the CD, it's an excellent the booklet. And this was recorded in '65. So, and there's another Earl Hines that Columbia put out in '88.
I've seen that.
Yeah. So, this has Bud Johnson on the trio with Bud Johnson on soprano and tenor. So, I mean, somebody like Earl Hines, as great as he is, most people wouldn't think of him as someone that played the Vanguard, I don't think.
No, for sure.
But he did, and and we have the recordings to show it. So, yeah.
I've got one early one I wanted to show too. Early-ish, I guess. So this one is Cannonball Adderly, in New York at the Village Vanguard with Nat and Yusef Lateef. I love Cannonball's Riverside live recordings. Like I've got 3 or 4 of them. They're all great, but this one really kind of stands out. Or any of the ones that have Yusef Lateef really stand out.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to remember here. Well, there's Planet Earth. There's a Yusef Lateef song on here. Another one's called Synthesia.
Mm-hmm.
But no, this is a really great recording. For me, I don't know what it is. This Cannonball's live stuff just seems like so much better to me than his regular recordings on Riverside.
I also like him. Like a sextet is a good size for him.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes you can get like a medium-sized band, and it just takes a different style then.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
And I know I jumped to '65 with Earl Hines, but I guess we have to go back to '61 and talk about the Coltrane recordings.
Oh yeah, you want to show that one, Mike? We all can show that one, I guess.
I pulled that one. I just listened to this a few days ago, and it's really grown on me. The first time I picked this up, I guess, a year and a half ago or so.
Yep.
And the first time I listened to it, I liked side 1 better than side 2, and now I like side 2 better than side 1. So I feel like the more Coltrane I listen to, the more this is palatable to me. So I kind of really enjoy it actually. So yeah, this is live at the Village Vanguard. I think this is from '60 or '61.
Right.
So it's very early in his Impulse career, right? So
Yep.
Was it actually released before records like Ballads or Duke Ellington?
That's a good.
Okay, it was recorded in '61.
Right.
Yeah.
Released in '62.
Okay.
And then I have that album too, but usually what I listen to most is this right here, and this is because it's the complete recordings, and it's what is it, four CDs, and it has the whole gig. So I usually listen to this more than I listen to the vinyl, because it's just a greater variety. So I can pull out and different songs, different nights, and check it out. So, and I'm sure now you can probably get this for dirt cheap.
Maybe some of those box sets are crazy. I've got this one, which is part of that, right? It's called the other Village Vanguard tapes, I guess. I actually like this one better than the regular album. So,
what songs do they play on it?
I mean,
and is Pharoah Sanders on it?
Let me see. That's a good question. So, hang on, let's see who was on this. John Coltrane, obviously. Eric Dolphy.
Right.
Jimmy Garrison, Reggie Workman, Elvin Jones. You would think it's going to be all the same guys on all of them, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think I might have mixed that up. Maybe
there's like Garvin Bushell.
Right. Abdul Malik.
Okay.
Yeah. And this one's from November 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I guess.
Right.
All over the place.
Yeah. That's the same same as this. And yeah, it is our coffee, not Pharoah Sanders.
What's funny is, Mike, you brought up a funny story there. So me and Mike and Felipe have been friends for longer than we've had the Jazz Bums channel. We used to just talk on Messenger and like listen to records together. And we first got that, and we listened to the first one. Like, this is awesome, man. We hit side 2, man, and about 2 minutes in, Mike's like, F this, I can't listen to this. I'm never listening to side 2 of this record ever again.
And side 2 is chasing the Dolphy's not even on side 2. It's only train. He does chasing the train, and it's the whole side. And it starts like I listened to it just a few days ago, and again, it starts very, fine, and then he really does get out there on this. Like he starts getting pretty crazy. So, but yeah, I definitely like
side 1. Right.
I like side 1. I thought side 2 was interesting because it's all Coltrane, and he's just playing. He's like just on a crazy solo. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That's very cool. All right. Any more early stuff?
I have one here, the Jazzland.
Cool.
The Junior Mance Trio. That's a 61 recording, Chris.
That's from 61, you're saying?
Yeah. This is a 64 issue, I think.
Okay.
So it was hard. I couldn't find much information on this particular Jazzland label, this maroon.
Oh, yeah. I think I have one of those somewhere.
Because they have black, orange, maroon, white, whatever you like. So on this pressing, I couldn't get much information yet. There's a mono.
Nice.
So what's that? What's the music like on that?
So of course the trio, Junior Mance, Larry Gales, and Ben Riley. I think it's very it's fast paced, really uplifting. Everybody solos. The piano is very loud and present. It's a very typical piano trio hard bop from those days.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Some almost like a Billy Taylor trio kind of thing, at least to my perception. And it's a really good one. I think it's this one is in shrink. It was less than $20.
Nice. Yeah, I've not heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Jason has some cool ones.
All right, I have one more. This is going to be Kenny Burrell. So this is on our phone. This is Kenny Burrell, A Night at the Vanguard. And this is the original cover. You can get a cadet reissue of this with a different cover. It says like Men at Work or something. Yeah. It's the same record. You can like literally get it for like $7. So that's probably the way to go. And those cadet reissues sound fantastic. Not to digress, but I have an Art Farmer. I think it's like Portrait of Art. I have the original pressing that is the most beautiful cover ever. And then I got the cadet reissue, and that thing sounds so much better. It's like different league. So anyway, so this is Kenny Burrell Trio. This lineup is ridiculous. It's recorded in 1959 at the Village Vanguard in New York with Kenny Burrell, Richard Davis on bass, and then Roy Haynes on drums. And the first song they do is All Night Long. And if you collect Chad's reissue series, that is a track, Kenny Burrell track on this one, All Night, and also the title of the record. And it takes up, I think, the entire side A. So it is not as long because it's a trio, because this, you can see it's a jam session. So like everybody gets opportunity to solo on it. This is only 5 minutes, but he's great. It doesn't, at times his style to me can sound like a little old, but there are moments on this record that the band is like so tight and swing really hard. So this is a really, really good one. Definitely recommend getting it.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that one. I've got the cadet reissue. I like that one a lot.
Okay, cool. Okay, so this one is not everybody's cup of tea for sure. I think you got to really be into it. But I love it. It's Albert Ayler live at Greenwich Village. So it is recorded in the Vanguard. And it has Albert. So there's a lot of cool things about this. But some of the cool things is that Michael Sampson is on this, and he plays violin. So you have like the sextet with violin. You have Albert Ayler tenor, Donald Ayler trumpet, his brother, Michael Sampson violin, Bill Fowell on bass, Henry Grimes on bass also, so 2 bass players, and then Beaver Harris on drums. Nice. And it's cool. I mean, it goes everywhere. So, if something's irritating you in 10 seconds, it won't be. And, they do a lot of high energy kind of playing on this. So it's a cool one. What do you think about this one, Mike?
Yeah, it's probably not for everyone, but I mean, I think it's one of the, I don't want to say essential, but if you sort of collect the Vanguard live at the Vanguard recordings, then you should have it. I mean, you should have it. Not only, even if you're not into Albert Eiler, I think you should have it.
I think
in my collection.
I was just gonna say, when I listen to it, I imagine myself in the club, because I do feel like watching these musicians play, would probably be kind of really entertaining. Even if like you weren't too into the music, you can imagine what the performance would look like, right? Like it was very much a high energy show. So I think thinking about that also makes it kind of interesting to listen to.
And it's sort of, an outlier to, most of the albums recorded at the Vanguard, and that, Albert Eiler is associated with, the avant-garde. And if you look at the majority of the overwhelming majority of the live at the Vanguard recordings, it's more, I guess you'd say, straight ahead / mainstream. Even though you've had those guys that push the boundaries. I think the late Fall Motion sessions also push the boundaries, but I would think most people would think that the Albert Eiler recording is sort of an outlier within what the majority of the live at the Vanguard recordings are.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'll give it a shot as long as Ornette's not the one playing violin.
Sounds like a plan.
The Vanguard is also a place where artists can kind of return and start their career again. And there's been numerous instances of people getting basically second opportunities, and it being some of the best of their catalog. So I think we wanted to jump into a couple artists that fit this category. So who wants to jump in?
Because the Art Pepper, the live at the Vanguard, is from dates from 1977.
Let's look at those.
So, if we all, I think all of us, a lot of people out there know the Art Pepper story. Basically, he had that success in the 50s, early 60s, but he spent most of the 1960s in jail and rehab facilities. But in the mid 70s, he started recording again, and and basically recorded up until his death. But the Vanguard, it sort of symbolizes, the return. Even though he started recording in 75, these sessions these live sessions are just so phenomenal. I think it's probably a lot of people, when I started listening, a lot of people, started with the Art Pepper live at the Vanguard. So it's late Art Pepper. It was it's the rhythm section and the Vanguard recordings. That's how most people I know, when I started listening, got into Art Pepper. That wide gap. And these are, the musicians on here are phenomenal. It's Elvin Jones on drums, George Merez, who was a great bass player, and George Cables on piano. And George Cables was one of Art Pepper's favorite pianists to play with. But this is, these live dates belong in anybody's collection. They're just phenomenal. Art Pepper's magnificent. He's got, and he's different. His playing, is different from, Meets the Rhythm section and Smack Up and those sessions.
Totally agree. I mean, for me, I think these three records are my favorite Village Vanguard records. I mean, I like these better than the Bill Evans records. They're freaking insanely good. I mean, I can't say enough. Like, if you were going to own Art Pepper records, get these 3, or just find one of them. Right? They're just so killer. Does anybody? Mike or Felipe? Do y'all have any of those records yet?
I have one of them, Chris.
Okay.
I have the
No,
second.
They're getting expensive. I've looked into getting them after we did an Art Pepper stream with Rob on his channel, and yeah, they're like $50 plus records.
Yeah.
Felipe, what is your impression of the one you have?
I agree with you, Chris. It's like I think he's offering more. Well, although his 50s stuff is brilliant, it just feels like he's more mature, or perhaps all these years, of hustling pretty much just change his perception of life, world, music. I don't know. He just sounds more mature. He kind of knows what he wants to achieve. And at the same time, he doesn't go like with a 70s sound or going out there. He just seems to be like a flow, an evolving of his own style. Like he was doing his own thing, regardless of the times.
Totally.
Watching his documentary, you can see that there was a sense of urgency for him to do as much as he could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't gonna blow it this time, at least musically, he was gonna document, how much he could play, how well he could play. Yeah, it's like he knew this was his last shot at making history.
Oh, yeah.
And he went for it.
There's no doubt. I mean, there's not to digress too much on Art Pepper, but there's some other live recordings of his from the same kind of era that are really good. I can't remember the name of the club. I don't remember that they're on Galaxy though. But there's 2 or 3 of them that are all from the same place that are just dynamite. I mean, he seems like every time he played one of those gigs that got recorded, maybe it was every gig, but like he was just playing like that's the last thing he was going to do on the earth that night, and that he was just leaving it all out there. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah. And on this live at the Vanguard, one of my favorite Art Pepper songs, compositions, and it's called Las Cuevas de Mario. And I don't know, I'm sure it's not like the greatest composition or anything, but it just speaks to me. I even and Art Pepper, he even says introduces the song, and it's always stayed with me from the day I heard it. It just had that type of impact on.
Now, Mike, do you have the LPs and CDs?
I have the CDs. I have it's a Japanese
the box.
Yeah, contemporary. Gosh, when did I buy this? I think I got this in college in the late 80s maybe. But
now there's a Japanese pressing called More for Less, and it's like additional takes from I don't know what day it is.
Right, and I have that on a separate CD that was I want to say OJC put out. I do have the More for Less also. Yeah, and if I can find the box at a nice price, I'll definitely get it. And I think they also put out like a CD box set with supposedly the complete live at the Village Vanguard. I'm not sure, but I'm almost positive they did that. So, but yeah, that was like Art Pepper's like resurgence. Like I said, he had spent the '60s in like San Quentin and drug rehab, and since I mentioned Art Pepper and San Quentin, there's another alto player that in the '80s had a resurgence, who spent time at San Quentin with Art Pepper, and they both played in the Warden's band at San Quentin. And Frank Morgan. Frank Morgan had drug problems. He battled addiction for years.
Is that Frank Morgan? Is that the same Frank Morgan?
Yep,
Oh,
that's Frank Morgan.
Look at that. This is a good segue. This is Frank Morgan at the Village Vanguard. I just got this in. It's on Contemporary, which I think the Art Peppers are also on Contemporary, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So they're label mates as well as cell mates. There you go.
Hey.
And what was funny that when Frank Morgan played for a while, he said, you know, that band that he played in San Quentin, the Warden's band at San Quentin with Art Pepper, he said that it was one of the best band or the best band that he played in. And then he sort of walked that back, you know, once he got a taste of freedom and, you know, being able to pick your bandmates and do your own.
Yeah. Yeah, once he got his own band.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing there too. I mean, it's right up. I love that record. It's Cedar Walton and Billy Higgins.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Who's the bass player on that? I've forgotten.
Yeah. So hold on. It's you're talking this one here.
Yeah.
So it's Johnny Cole's trumpet, and hold on. So Buster Williams is the bass player, and his bass is so like in your face on this, like it is bass forward recording, which is it's got so this is like very relaxed feel. I don't know. It's got like a cool vibe, which. Yeah, I don't know if he's a West Coast guy, but
he's a West Coast guy. You know, he's a bebop guy. He came under the influence of Charlie Parker, good and bad, of course. You know, but I love that was Frank Morgan. I saw a year after that recording. I saw Frank Morgan at the Vanguard.
Okay,
and. He was sort of, in a way, in a different way, he was sort of like Art Pepper. He was not going to blow this chance.
Yeah, that's how it sounds. So I was just going to say, he sounds like, you know, he's with a quintet, but he really sounds excellent on this.
Yeah,
he stands out definitely.
And you know, he was one of the nicest guys. Because when I saw him at the Vanguard, like after they finished, you know, I went up to him and, you know, I said a few words to him, and he was just like so thrilled just to be there, that people were coming to see him. He was playing the Vanguard. He was just really nice, and just, you know, I mean, to everyone. And he was, like I said, he was going to make the most out of whatever time he had left, and. He was just one of the nicest musicians that I've ever come across, just in terms of communicating with people.
That's cool.
Now, Felipe, have you heard that Frank Morgan record?
Not this one. I heard another one, not this one.
And you can get that. You can find that for you know,
$10.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering now. Yeah.
And those contemporaries, they were recorded pretty well.
Oh yeah.
And just like what they did with Art Pepper, you know, they did with Frank Morgan. They put them with outstanding musicians on all those recordings. You know, not only with the Vanguard, because he did, I think, two more with the Cedar Walton trio that are excellent, and then he did another one with McCoy Tyner trio. So all the contemporaries, even outside of the Village Vanguard, are excellent.
Cool. Yeah. All right, I want to talk about my favorite comeback record. Period. Basically, this record. Oh my god, this is a top 10 jazz record for me, probably. So Dexter Gordon, Homecoming. This is Dexter coming home from Europe, where he had been for, what was it, 15 years, 10, 15 years, Mike?
About that.
Yeah, he recorded some stuff, but if you look at Dexter Gordon's catalog, it just kind of drops off and dies when he goes to Europe, right? I mean, he came back and did Dexter Calling and some of those records, but
I think he still had to deal with the label, because he had to come back here, record something.
Yeah, and then he did all the stuff in Steeplechase and all that shit. But anyway, this is, I'll take it back. This is my favorite Vanguard recording, not the Art Pepper stuff. I mean, this has got Dexter Gordon, obviously on tenor, Woody Shaw on trumpet and flugelhorn, Ronnie Matthews on piano, Stafford James on bass, and then Louis Hayes on drums.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my god, it feels like the same thing, right? Like he was coming back. This was his chance to come back to the States. You know, and the story behind this is interesting. They were like Maxine, his wife, they were kind of worried people might not show up to see him play, and then it was just like sold out, crazy, lines every single night. Yeah, and some of the songs on here are just crazy, like Gingerbread Boy. God, I love that song on this record. Little Red's Fantasy is really good. They do a really cool Round Midnight on here. It's 2 LPs, and it's like I paid $6 for this.
And what's also interesting about that, the band is essentially Woody Shaw's group.
Mm-hmm. That's
so
right.
You've got, and Shaw was on, I believe, 70. He's probably on Columbia at the time. I'm almost positive he was on Columbia. So it's a label mate, and so his band is backing him up, and that's definitely one that you need to have in your collection. And it falls into that whole resurgence comeback, using the Vanguard as sort of that stage for a U.S. relaunch. And what's the next one? You want to go to the Joe Henderson?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now the Joe Henderson live at the Vanguard. Before that, I don't think Joe Henderson had recorded as a leader for about 4 or 5 years. And
he was also returned to Blue Note, right?
Yep, it was a return to Blue Note, and this is the thing that I think this is the album that sort of gradually kicks off the latter stage of Joe Henderson's career. And it says it in the liner notes how the idea came about from Stanley Crouch, saying, he was there seeing Joe Henderson with a quartet, and what he liked about it most is when the piano player laid out, and then the trio performed. And so he went to I think him and Michael Cascuna went to Bruce Lundvall, the head of Blue Note, and convinced him to do this.
Wow.
This session. And when they did this, it wasn't, what's weird about it, it wasn't like immediately like everybody was like, oh, this is, Joe's back or anything. This sort of built, it sort of gradually gained steam how great these dates were. Because when Blue Note first put it out.
Do you have the records to show?
Felipe does, right?
I do. I think Mike. I think I have one with you because
I have one of them.
Okay, cool.
And so, just to show the record, people may be familiar with this but not realize what it is. But this is Joe Henderson at the Village Vanguard. This is Volume 2. There is Volume 1. They're set and they were put out by Tone Poet.
Right.
And these are easily they're available. There's a bunch on Discogs for starting at $25. People really sleep on these, and I got one of these based on Mike's recommendation, and he's like virtuosic, but not as he. I feel like when I think of virtuosity, I think of speed, but he leaves a lot of space, but he shows his technical skill, and it's at moments it is just like incredible, beautiful. It sounds like it's just one of the best in my collection. So that Joe Henderson on this, on that Blue Note, it's so different from 1960s Joe Henderson on Blue Note.
Oh, for sure,
yeah. I mean, just the way the tone is changed. He's not he doesn't seem to be interested in being that young firebrand or whatever. He's taking his time with the notes. He's leaving space. He's playing off of the other musicians. It seems that he's he's not even look. He's beyond that space. He's beyond the 60s Blue Note, and even the milestone stuff. It just seems to be so much different to me.
So, yeah, it sounds like he's in full control, right?
Yeah,
that would be a good definition.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about those two records, Felipe? You have them both.
Yeah, I started buying Tom Ports from very beginning. I got this when this came out, and I was surprised. I mean, I knew some of the milestones, a lot of the 60s Blue Notes, his sessions as a leader and as a sideman. But when I listened to those, I felt like it's special. It's really, I think it's in a higher standard, as Mike said. He's in a great control of the band and everything. It just sounds great. Sounds really good, despite being digital, whatever people might say. But I grabbed this very early Tom Ports, and some of my favorites for sure.
Yeah, and
good.
One thing I really like about those his interpretation of Monk compositions. They're magnificent. Boo Boo's Birthday, he really nails it, and he would return to Monk in his later sessions. I have another trio recording that he did in Italy, and he does a beautiful version of Ask Me Now. And then there's a recording, it's a McCoy Tyner recording on Chesky, where he does a version of Ask Me Now. And it starts off with with Joe Henderson solo before everybody comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Magnificent. So, this also sort of launched him into, just interpreting Monk tunes on record.
Now, you said this was kind of the beginning of his later period. Did the rest of his records kind of keep that same feeling? Like or did he return to like the milestone Blue Note sound much?
No, he didn't go back. Like after this, he did the trio. It's on the Red Records that was recorded in Italy with Charlie Hayden on bass instead of Ron Carter. Al Foster still on drums.
Right.
And then he did another studio session with a trio. I want to say it was 89 or 90 with Al Foster again on drums. And Rufus Reid on bass. And then after that, he signed the Verve and did all those Verve things. So so it was a slow build until he signed the Verve in 1990 or 91 and put out Lush Life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do love that song.
Yeah.
And that has Wynton Marsalis on it.
Yeah, it has a bunch of people.
And Christian McBride.
Yeah. But yeah, so the Vanguard recordings were sort of kicked off and that latter stage of his career where it slowly gained momentum. He did 3 trio dates, and then that led to him being signed by Verve. And supposedly the guy that was running Verve at the time basically cites the Joe Henderson in trio and doing trio work as the impetus and him signing him to Verve.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and then that's where he ends his career. So he has. It looks like there's 5 studio titles on Verve.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then there's another musician that I want to just sort of you could say sort of a relaunch. J.J. Johnson had been off the scene for years. In '88, he recorded some live sessions at the Vanguard that were recorded, but they were released in 1990 and 91, and they were recorded and they released both of them, and it's one's called I guess Quintergy. But it's J.J. Johnson live at the Vanguard, and on this one, he's doing basically sort of bop songs, some of his own compositions, but the band is J.J. Johnson, Stanley Cowell on piano, Rufus Reed on bass, Ralph Moore on saxophone, and Victor Lewis on drums. And he also did an album just of standards live at the Vanguard. And this was released on Antilles, which was a subsidiary of Island Records. But, you know, after this was released, then J.J. Johnson would release a series of recordings on Verve that basically took him to the end of his career.
I had no idea that. Oh.
So, you know, again, you know, starting with, you know, releasing something just like Joe Henderson, 2 recordings at the Vanguard. You know, it's sort of a relaunch.
Those are some terrible covers, though, man.
Oh, they're terrible. They really are. They really are. But the music is really, it's so good. You know, on one of them they're doing like just basically a lot of J.J. Johnson tunes and a couple of Parker tunes, and then just all, you know, standards, and it's just beautiful. It's really good. But, you know, I don't think, you know, I just think that's a session that, you know, no one talks about anymore. But when it came out, everyone was talking about how good it was. But it's sort of been, you know, lost.
I'm pretty sure the 3 of us didn't know it existed until just now.
All right, so kind of the last section. Do we want to talk about kind of later releases?
Just, you know, one thing, you know, we talk about a lot of, you know, we don't instrumentalists, but there have been some vocalists that have recorded live at the Vanguard, and you know, the one that I have in my collection, this Betty Carter.
Oh wow!
And this is on her own label, Betcar, and it's excellent. I believe Verve may have reissued this once they entered in a deal with Betty Carter, but this is really good live at the Vanguard.
That's beautiful.
And then here, this is a CD of Mary Stallings, and she's a vocalist. She did a lot of work on, I believe, Concord, on the Concord label. But this is a really killing set at the Vanguard, and it was on this label that no longer exists called Max Jazz, and you know, they did they did some excellent work. But you know, she's been around for quite a long period of time. And then the other one that I think I think Felipe, you have this one too.
Oh yeah.
Cecile McLaurin to that. So most of this, I believe, was recorded at the Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
that's on Mac Avenue, right?
Yeah, Mac Avenue.
Oh yeah, those Mac Avenue there, so they're impeccable.
Yeah,
They really are. So what is your thoughts on this record, Felipe? Do you have a copy?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's a very well recorded. Her composition, some I wouldn't even say standards, just like pretty wide variety of different compositions. It's the piano, her voice, the bass, everything is so well recorded and feels so intimate. It's just beautiful recording. Reminds me kind of a little bit the Samara Joy in a different type of music, but the whole sonority, the way the music sounds is quite similar.
Mm-hmm.
The whole arrangement, yeah.
And she also sort of reminds me. There's a little bit of Betty Carter in her at that point in her career, Now later she's moved on from that influence, but she has a little bit of Betty Carter in her also, and how she deconstructs songs. So those are like the just we mostly think of just instrumentalists, but there are some vocalists that have released live at the Vanguard recordings.
We touched on some of the artists that are current regulars. We spoke a little bit about Monday Night, but I don't know if anybody has any of the Village Vanguard Orchestra or Mel Lewis Jones Orchestra records. But there are Mel Lewis Thad Jones recorded Vanguard sessions that you can get. It's larger band stuff, medium sized band, whatever, and those are classic records. We also spoke about the return, so how the Vanguard has been integral in a lot of people's resurgences. We spoke about early stuff like the Sonny Rollins, but before we kind of like wrap things up, just open forum if there's any titles that anyone wants to show. I know we didn't touch on the more current stuff except for the Jason Moran at the Thanksgiving, but yeah.
Oh, just one thing we did. You can't talk about I guess current live at the Vanguard recordings without talking about Brad Mehldau. Because the Order the Trio recordings, this one, which I think is the first one live at the Vanguard, and then there's Art of the Trio 4 back at the Vanguard, and then there's Art of the Trio Volume 5.
Oh wow.
Now I guess they stopped calling. Now it's Trio Progression now, so they ditched the Art of the Vanguard title, and then this one, which is just called, what is it called? I think it's just called Live, and this was also recorded at the Vanguard, and they're all excellent.
Have you ever seen them play there?
I've never seen. It's called Brad Mehldau Trio Live. Okay. I've never seen the Brad Mehldau Trio live at the Vanguard. I've seen Brad Mehldau. Actually, the first time I saw Brad Mehldau was at the Vanguard, and he was playing in a group with the saxophonist David Sanchez. And what was memorable about it was Brad Mehldau was late. They started the set without him, and then he comes down the steps and then meanders up to the piano and starts to play.
Wow,
that was my introduction to Brad Mehldau.
Now, I think so. As I mentioned earlier, we looked up. There were over 100 Vanguard recordings, and I think there were over 70 artists. And I don't even think we found them all. I think that was just what we could gather from Wikipedia and Discogs. But I'm sure that you could do a more thorough search and cataloging of it. But that said, he was one of the top recorded artists there. I think he had 4 or 5 recordings. I think you just showed them all. And then I think the next person was Bill Evans. He was around like 6 or 7 recordings. And then the only person that had more was Kenny Burrell. And Kenny Burrell had like 7 or 8. So those were from what we could find, those were the top recording artists at the Vanguard.
Right. And then just, in terms of, I guess releases, because this one I'm going to show falls under one release, but it's actually 7 CDs. This is the Wynton Marsalis live at the Vanguard, only released on CD. But this is sort of like a celebration of his septet, and it goes from 90 through 94. and they have it set up where this one is supposed to be Monday night. It's sort of a fictional week at the Vanguard, Monday through Sunday. But of course, Monday, it's the Vanguard Orchestra. So but this is excellent, and it's a snapshot of the sextet. And for one of the '94 dates when they played, I actually was there because that was the end of the septet. So I went to that performance that week. So this is 7 CDs.
Well, the septet, does that include Brandon?
No, not Branford. No. Branford was doing his own thing. It's this was a long sort of, and with a few changes. It was a long running band. With Winton, the Wessel Anderson on alto, Victor Goings on tenor and soprano. This player, tenor player Todd Williams, Wycliffe Gordon, who plays trombone, Marcus Roberts, Eric Reed, Reginald Ville, Herlin Riley, who people may also know as a drummer with Ahmad Jamal. And this is Winton's longtime group. A couple of guys changed here and there, like the pianist Marcus Roberts and Eric Reed changed, and a couple of the trombone players. But this was his longtime working band, and I know that last set in '94 when he was ending the septet, it was an event. That was he may not have the most Vanguard releases, but there are 7 CDs and one fell swoop. He covered a good period of time. There's another. I just want to talk about one other person. I've shown this so many times. People are sick of me. But this one here, this Tommy Flanagan live at the Vanguard. This is really good, but this is also marked the return of Rudy Van Gelder.
Oh wow!
Of doing live recordings. He had when he did this live recording, he hadn't done a live recording at the Vanguard for 12 years.
Cool.
And this is a beautiful sounding record. I mean, this is where one of those where you hear, sort of the background voices and people in the club. So, if you like that sort of thing in your live recordings, this is a really good one. And Tommy Flanagan would do another live recording at the Vanguard for Blue Note years later, in the 80s. I mean, in the 90s, I think. But you can find this for like 10, between 10 and 15, I think. And I highly recommend that.
I do want to wrap it up, but I want to show one thing because there is a release this year, 2023, that you can buy right now. So this is a 2023 recording from Fred Hersch and Esperanza Spalding. And I'm familiar with Esperanza Spalding because she's on that live Wayne Shorter record. Right?
Yeah, you got to give a caveat to that.
Okay.
She's not playing bass.
Oh, okay.
She's singing
on this Vanguard session.
Yeah, I have that. I didn't pull it, but
right. Okay.
Yeah, she's doing vocals. So,
okay. Well, still recent Vanguard session, $20 on vinyl. Yeah. Mike, what do you think? What's your review?
Fred Hersch is magnificent. I've heard Esperanza Spalding's, as a vocalist after that date, and okay. She's gotten much better.
Okay.
She's gotten much better. Oh, I just want to find some stuff I skipped that I think is really important.
Yeah.
Joe Lovano, the quartets. Blue Note released these.
It's nice.
in the 90s, I believe. And these were like a big deal when they released these, because they were releasing 2 sets recorded at the Vanguard, and a lot of publicity behind it. Joe Lovano made a number of great recordings on Blue Note. I mean, he's got to have close to 20 recordings on Blue Note.
That's so cool.
It's just fabulous. And it's two different groups. This one is Tom Harold on trumpet and flugelhorn, Anthony Cox on bass, Billy Hart drums. The other one is Mo Gru Miller, Christian McBride, and Lewis Nash. And they're both, recorded in '95. They're excellent. These came out in vinyl, I believe, for the Blue Note 75. So you can find these. You can find these.
Cool.
And then there's another one I wanted to show. This Bobby Hutcherson live at the Vanguard. Those tables are still. You go to the Vanguard right now. Those are the tables you're sitting at.
Nice.
So you can see how, and that's how dark it is in there. So I just wanted to show those because I forgot.
Don't drop your keys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I think one thought, just to kind of wrap it up. So the club is almost 100 years old. So historically, is it probably the most important so far? And for the future, is it still going to be there? For how long is it still going to be around? Do you guys guess?
I would say, yeah, historically, it is probably the most important in terms of, the history, the longevity, those things, and like everyone doesn't play there. There are great musicians that have not played the Vanguard, but look at the great musicians that have played there, and the Vanguard has endured where other clubs, are gone. They don't. The Black Hawk, that's in San Francisco, gone. You name some of the, you can name so many, once great jazz clubs that are gone, but the Vanguard is still here, still standing, and they've had a consistent a consistent run. So yeah, I think it is. If you're looking for up and coming musicians, no, you're not going to go to. They're not going to be at the Vanguard. It's where many of them will get to, either as sidemen or as their own player. Like I just saw Emmanuel Wilkins at the Vanguard, but he's played there before. But this was his first date as a leader. And he had, he has 2 albums on Blue Note.
Right.
And he just got his, first date as a leader at the Vanguard.
All right. Well, first off, thank you, Mike, for joining and helping out the stream here.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
We'll link up your Instagram and YouTube in the description. We also started a Jazz Bum Discord. We'll drop the link there, the invite there for anybody who wants to join. It's doing pretty well. We have a lot of good conversation on there, so feel free to stop by. And yeah, if you made it this far, please like and subscribe. We appreciate that. And any final words, guys?
Let us know what your favorite Vanguard records are.
Yeah, this is your favorite Vanguard, and if you've been to the Vanguard and which show, which concert you had a chance to see, I think that'll be cool too. It's like a whole there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are just so many. Even like Mike said, there's just a huge list. And I mean, even here, there's just like, I don't know, I've got probably 10 or 15 that I didn't even show. Just a lot of great performances that were actually captured, that were recorded. So you'll be able to, you'll take your time, you'll find something that appeals to you, and that that large list of Live at the Vanguard recordings.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Guys. Bye.